From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Dave DeForrest reporting a strenuous day of hearings on Capitol Hill. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was questioned Thursday by a congressional committee investigating the 2012 attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya.
Let's be worthy of the trust the American people have bestowed upon us. They expect us to lead, to learn the right lessons, to rise above partisanship, and to reach for statesmanship.
Clinton spoke in measured tones about the deaths of Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans at the consulate. Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy said questions linger regarding the government's actions before and after the attacks in Benghazi. U.S. President Barack Obama welcomed Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to the White House Thursday. The 2 leaders emerged from discussions unable to announce a date for the resumption of Pakistan-mediated talks between officials from Afghanistan and the Taliban. The U.S. hopes for help from Pakistan in ending the conflict in Afghanistan. They did, however, announce new initiatives on trade, clean energy, and women's education. At least 2,000 South African university students and supporters crowded into a Johannesburg city block Thursday to demand that the ruling ANC party deliver on its promise of a free higher education. The demonstration comes more than a week after students at Johannesburg's University of the Witwatersrand launched protests over a proposed 10% hike on tuition and fees. A joint rescue mission by U.S. and Iraqi Kurdish fighters freed about 70 hostages. Officials say the operation in northern Iraq was launched in response to information that hostages faced imminent mass execution by Islamic State militants. This is VOA News. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry voiced hope that a solution can be found to defuse the current wave of violence in Israel and the West Bank.
That conversation as one that gave me a cautious measure of optimism that there may be some things that could be, in the next couple of days, put on a table which would have an impact.
Kerry, with his hoarse voice, spoke following a 4-hour meeting Thursday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The meeting was in Berlin. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights is accusing the Czech Republic of detaining migrants and refugees in degrading conditions. Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein says credible reports from various sources indicate a systematic violation of migrants' rights. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations slammed Russia's military intervention in Syria on Thursday. Samantha Power told a meeting of the UN Security Council on the Middle East that Russian attacks have made the Islamic State terrorists stronger and have allowed them to seize more Syrian territory. Russian envoy Vitaly Churkin expressed surprise at the remarks, saying there is always what he called a propaganda war going on, and that Russia is conducting its Syrian offensive in what he called great transparency. The presumed next Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Republican Paul Ryan, could be elected next week, just days before a momentous deadline to avoid a potentially catastrophic U.S. debt default. Michael Bowman reports the federal government hits the borrowing limit on November 3rd, and the Obama administration is warning of dire economic consequences if Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling by then.
Lawmakers of both parties agree the United States must not default. But shepherding a debt ceiling hike through a politically polarized Congress during a House leadership change is fraught with uncertainty. Will Congress attempt to pass a so-called clean bill to raise the borrowing limit as the White House demands, or a bill with stipulations favored by Republicans likely to trigger a presidential veto. The Senate could take the lead and pass legislation first, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell appeared to rule out that possibility earlier this week. Michael Bowman, The Capitol.
Economic reports released Thursday indicate the U.S. job and housing markets are improving. The number of Americans signing up for unemployment compensation hovered near a 40-year low last week. The report may be evidence that U.S. domestic demand is strong enough to offset weak overseas markets. On Wall Street, U.S. stock indexes ended the day up. In Washington, I'm Dave DeForrest.
That's the latest world news from VOA.